Hi there, welcome to another episode of Left versus Right. Today, the question of allegations being leveled by the US short seller Hindenburg. What a fascinating story this is. On one hand, you have a scenario where the short seller is openly admitting that this company has been paid by someone to investigate the activities of the Adani Group so that that company can take short positions and make big money. Well, this investigation now has been going on for well over a year. The latest target, after the Adani Enterprises themselves, happens to be the SEBI chairperson, Ms. Madhabi Butch. Today, our two lead protagonists of this entire story, our two lead producers who've looked at pretty much all facts at all sides of this debate, Sudeep Mukhia and Surojit Dasgupta, are going to break down the story into three parts. Question number one: is Madhabi Butch guilty of corruption, or do we say that this is nothing else but perhaps administrative dereliction? Question number two: does this entire controversy actually point us in the direction of a problem with lateral entrance? At the end of the day, Ms. Butch was a lateral entrant. How would she have known, let's say way back in 2013 or 14, that she'll end up becoming the SEBI chairperson at some stage? And question number three: Hindenburg, which happens to be a paid entity, do we really believe all conclusions which are being arrived at by Hindenburg, knowing fully well that those conclusions are being arrived at with pretty much vested interests? The person taking the floor first up, Surojit Dasgupta.
Clearly, this latest report from Hindenburg Research makes no sense. For one, it looks like a hit job, but I'll come to that later. What Hindenburg is expecting Madhavi Butch to do as the chief of SEBI is to be able to predict what's going to happen 7 years later. That is, Hindenburg expects anybody who is going to be appointed in a position of authority in the future to be an astrologer, which is ridiculous. Like tomorrow, I may be appointed somewhere. On the basis of that, I'm not supposed to make any investment today. How can that be a fair expectation? And how can that also mean that I have influenced that because of my past investments?
No, but you see, I would disagree with the formulation of your answer. It is not a question of whether you have to make a prediction or not. Everybody is free to invest. Today, I made hundreds of investments, let's say. Tomorrow, by some quirk of fate, I made the SEBI director. My point is, if an inquiry comes to my table which says that, X company in which I had invested 7 years ago, maybe I've even withdrawn that money, maybe I've encashed that money and had fun with it. I still need to make a declaration that I had one point of time associated with this. Therefore, it should be left to other people to either investigate it, or I should make my position very clear that while I will continue to investigate it, please understand that I was involved with this at some point. In a judge, for instance, what happens with a judge? Exactly like this. As a lawyer, I fought your case. As a judge,
This is precisely where a judge recusing himself or herself from a case is different from the case of a SEBI director. Because when I am an advocate and I fight for somebody, I know the in and out of that person.
Right.
Which is why if his case comes to my court, I may not be in a fair position to be neutral.
Right.
Whereas in the case of a SEBI director,
right.
Madhavi Butch is no longer in a position to be influenced by anything that she might have invested or her husband might have invested in Bermuda or Mauritius. So how is that going to affect her judgment in the case of whether or not the SEBI is fair?
It is a very simple thing. You are exactly what you're saying. You are a judge here.
Yeah.
You are the judge here. You are the regulator of you are the chief of the regulator of one of the biggest markets in the world. And it's a booming market. We all know how much it's booming.
Right.
You need to make clear that I had certain associations earlier. I might have them. I might not have them anymore. But that has to happen where you make it very, very transparent. That transparency
such a declaration would mean nothing for the simple reason that, for one, we are making lateral entries in all positions of authority nowadays. So anybody making a lateral entry from high-profile corporate jobs like the one that the Bush family held in Singapore, they are going to have such antecedents. And therefore, either you change the policy of lateral entry. We've had some great lateral entrants in our system. For example, the first vice chairperson of Niti Aayog, Arvind Panagaria, was an economist in a college. Now we have Amitabh Kant, who is also a very successful.
No, but he's an IAS officer. He's not a. You see, my counter to that is very
yes,
simple.
yes.
You are saying there are lateral entrants. Lateral entry, for whatever reason, is not this thing. Whether it's successful or not is a different debate. Fact of the matter is, just because you made money, nobody's stopping you from making money. You're absolutely right. And in fact, I would trust somebody who's made money to help me make money. But the fact of the matter is, you need to tell me in a specific situation that I had a certain association earlier.
Only if I'm in a position to affect that judgment.
No, but you are. You need to be above all suspicion in this case. It's like the Supreme Court, the Chief Justice has to be above all suspicion because the Supreme Court judge is Chief Justice deciding.
I have already made the point that the judge's position and the SEBI director's position is different.
But I'm saying it's exactly the same because you are also judging here. Your job to regulate means you have to judge. If you are going to tell me that a company, let's say, let's say Timex, right?
Right.
Somebody was talking about Timex, so it's in my mind right now.
Okay.
Let's say Timex gets into a situation, right? Now, you have to judge whether Timex as a company has done the right thing or not. Right?
Okay.
Now, you cannot say that I don't know enough about Timex. You need to know, or people around you need to know.
What happens in the case of a judge? For example, I'll give some very typical case studies. A judge, let's say, is overseeing a case of crime, a very serious crime, let's say murder. And as an advocate, that judge used to know that the person has actually murdered somebody. But at that point of time, he had to defend that person. Now, as a judge, he will be in a dilemma what to say about this.
Right.
But in the case of corporates, business, economic affairs, etc., there isn't such case where, okay, let's say at that point of time, the place where she invested, mind you, there is no Gautam Adani in that investment, it's his brother.
Whatever.
Now the point
I'm not saying whether it's Adani or Ambani or
the point
Tata
is, let's say,
Birla.
let me concede your point for a while, and let's expect the Bush family to go and ask the firms where they invested, who are your other investors? Okay, first of all, on what basis will they ask this question? Because there was nothing against the Adanis in the previous decade. So why would they go and ask the company where they invested in Bermuda and Mauritius? Is there some Adani who has also invested here?
No. I think one second, I'm interrupting you. But I think that's a little bit of a simplistic way of looking at things. When you're investing, and these guys are not, it's like you and me. You and me, what do? We put our money in mutual funds.
Okay.
Millions of people put money in that mutual fund. Do you ask your person who is invested in that? Do I ask? No.
Exactly.
I'm trusting that person.
Yeah.
But the difference between this and that being, when you are, if you are the sort of person who puts money in an offshore fund, offshore funds
as they did it as Singaporeans, not as Indians.
Whatever, as Indians and Singaporeans, as Ecuadorians, as Belgians. Fact of the matter is, these people put in money through their own advisors, and it is not that you throw the money and say, tell me later, 10 years later, tell me how much I've made, which is what we do with our mutual fund. This is something that they interact with their advisor.
My question is simple. My question is simple.
So it is not that they wouldn't know. They will know. Okay? There is no question of them not knowing.
I
don't buy that.
I am saying that if you have to support Hindenburg, you will have to establish that due to this investment, Madhavi Buch's sense of judgment of finding out whether Adani was into some kind of an unethical manipulation of the stock market, was that judgment affected? I don't think it was.
No, but you see, how do you say that Hindenburg is a paid assassin? Or maybe let's assume he is a paid assassin. He's a declared paid assassin if you use that terminology.
Yes.
Hindenburg is a declared short seller.
Yeah.
Short sellers across the world are shorting the market and making money. for themselves, for other people who invest.
And the job of a short seller is to target a company so that its value falls, and when it falls, it rise.
I don't think
No.
that. No.
That is what it does.
No.
And since February last year, that is what Hindenburg has been doing with Adani.
Hindenburg with Adani, I'm not even saying.
Right.
I'm just saying short selling.
Hmm.
Short selling is not whether to attack the reputation. Short selling is a very, very, very high risk, high reward, and also a very, very, very intellectual activity where you know that today something is going to happen or something has happened.
It is a mainstream activity in the United States, and even in India, it is not illegal.
It's not illegal. It happens.
It is fair.
And shorting is also essential for the market.
Which is why both SEBI and the Supreme Court said that there is nothing wrong with what Hindenburg did. But at the same time, if Hindenburg is finding something fishy, there is no case for that. And the case has been closed by the Supreme Court. And mind you, in the latest report by Hindenburg, they have even attacked the Supreme Court of India, not just SEBI, which means their idea. Why is this idea of this analogy of paid assassin coming? Because they are essentially, first of all, targeting a company which is spread across the country. And that is how the Indian economy will go down, because if Adani goes down, the Indian economy goes down. And number two, it is even casting aspersions on the judicial system of the country, which means that anything that India says is no longer credible. Clearly a paid assassin.
That's it then. If you've liked it, do subscribe to our YouTube channel, thesquirrels.in. You can visit us on our website as well, thesquirrels.in.